In this video, we're going to take a look at stoning this design. Now, we're not going to stone the entire design, but I do want to stone bits and pieces of it just to kind of show you how I might tackle a design like this. Now, the way I do design work, most of the design work that I do, I'm giving a bitmap image like this. And so if we just want to be able to stone this, I wouldn't take the time to convert this into a vector file because it's just too complicated to do that. And honestly, we're going to get a better stone result if we just dive in and handle it ourselves. And there's different techniques that we can use. Now, what I'm going to show you here in CorelDRAW with EasyStone, I do know for a fact that WinPC Sign has a similar feature to what I'm going to show you here in EasyStone. Well, I should back up a moment. The latest version of WinPC Sign has the same feature that I'm going to show you in EasyStone. WinPC Sign 2012 and before does not. Now, for those of you who might be using Funtime, I don't know whether or not Funtime does or does not have this function that I'm going to show you here in EasyStone for certain. I believe it does, though. And then likewise, for those of you who might be using the TRW Stone Wizard, it too has a similar feature. Just know that if you are using WinPC 2014, for sure this feature exists in that version. Previous versions, it does not. I'm not 100% certain on the Funtime side, but I think it does. And of course, the TRW Stone Wizard does have a similar feature. So first things first, we need to set the size of this design, what we want it to be. And so I'm gonna go ahead and set the overall height. So we have a function in here called set size, where we can click on that and click at the very topmost point of the design, the very bottommost point of the design, and give it some type of height. And for this design, I'm just going to choose 11 inches. Now, when I do it that way, I like to double check the width. And so if we have nothing selected and click on set size, and we'll click on the left and rightmost point, it'll tell us that it's 8.5 inches. And so I know that this design, 11 inches tall, 8.5 inches wide, it's going to fit just fine on my garment. So then we just dive in and take a look at stoning it. But I'm going to select my bitmap and lock it under lock image here on the specialty tab. And then I need to lay down a couple of stones because I just looking at the design, I can't tell how this might work out using SS10s or SS6s. So what I would do is just right click on SS6, make sure that I'm in my stone library, not in my Spangle library, but right click on SS6. That sets the stone size to my default SS6 size, and then I right click on AS and drop a single stone, hit the escape key. I could then right click on SS10, right click on AS and drop an SS10 stone. Now I am going to just go ahead and come in here and let's just change those to hot pink. It'll be a little bit easier to see. And then if we come up here, and this is where the designer in us has to come out. What do we really want this design to be? Now, I think looking at this, just looking at this, there's a bit of a gap here. I think that could work quite easily in SS10. I might like to take a look at, well, what might that look like if we did one of those columns in SS10s and one of them in SS6s. So really, it just depends on what you, the designer, want to do there. But think about, too, some of the more complicated, like here with the S where these two lines converge, kind of what you're going to do there and make a decision. So I'm just going to start in. Let's just do our letter E, and let's just start in. So what I'm going to do is come here to the Stone Fill tab, and I've already placed one stone, and I'm just going to offset this one this way, and then offset a few this way, and then offset a couple that way. And then here, I'm going to come back here and just offset, 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 just like so, up to that point there, and then just do the same thing. Just come over and down. Now, I don't believe WinPC has this functionality. I know the Stone Wizard does, where we can nudge and offset and what have you. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just take this whole column and bump those over, but I'm going to change it to SS6. Now, a decision has to be made if there's enough space between these two to actually see that space. And my decision is to bump that just a little bit, just to overemphasize that a little bit. Now, the next thing here is you can see this spacing is quite a bit wider, so I might just hit the plus key on my keyboard 1, 2, 3 times. And what that does is making duplicate stones on top of one another. And then I'm just going to come in here and select all these stones and hit V for vertical. And then take a look at that stone spacing. And it might be just a touch tight, so I'm just going to delete one, come back in here, select all these stones, V for vertical. Now, sometimes it would be helpful too to actually pull this away, double check with just the weed box, and then we can see, you know, do we like that little design element where we have a different size stone? You could use the same size stone. As you know, all of you know, I'm a fanatic about using more than one size stone. So I'll go ahead and leave it that way. And we'll nudge this over. And then if we use our Alt Control, we can nudge half a space. So here we duplicated the stone. And then by Alt, we'll nudge. See, I can nudge that stone. But if we do the Control addition to that, then we're going to nudge it half. And that's how we can perfectly split between those two. Okay? So, and once you learn these little shortcuts, you know, things go pretty quick. So now that we already have our E, we can just take that and bump it right on over. And of course, we already have our L too. Now, don't get too concerned about the fact that, you know, the spacing isn't quite right. We can kind of, you know, modify that as we go a little bit. And then, of course, for our L here, we don't need this, and we don't need this. So we'll go ahead and delete that. So now you can see there's our L and our E. And we can just kind of keep going with this. So let's just say, for example, we want to do our P. Well, what would we do there? Let's go ahead and copy over our L, like such. And then we don't need this part of our L for our P, but then we just want to continue this around. So what I would do is come in here, let's go back in and bump this over a little bit. And I'm just going to connect these two. So select one stone, hold the Shift key, select the other, Shift AS, and then we'll just come in here and bend this around like so. Click here. We'll do the same thing. We're going to just bend this around and pull that down like so. And then if we select one of these stones along that curve, and there's our target button, we can add to, take away by right-clicking, and then hit our delete key, and then that fills in our P. And then of course, now that we have our P, well, we can just pull over this for our R. And then what I'm going to do here, and this is one of those things that I think helps when we don't vectorize, is where the K and the R here connect. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drop one stone right there and create a blend there, so that these two letters are gonna combine perfectly. So there's one there. Go ahead and bend this into shape where we want it, like so. And we can just click on this and we can bend that exactly the way we want it. And then we can hit our plus key on our keyboard to add a few stones along that path. And then you can kind of see how all this would come together. So same thing here for our A. We're just going to drop a stone right there at that intersection. We're going to pull a stone way up here. Connect these two. Pull this down like so. Click here, and we're gonna just kind of finagle this a little bit. You can see that we can control these ends pretty easily and get what we want. We can go ahead and add a control point just by double clicking, and we'll just add a control point right there, just like so. And add to these control points wherever you think you need them. And the more you do your design work, the easier it will be for you to determine, well, where are those control points going to be needed, and then you can add them appropriately. So we'll go ahead and pull this down here a little bit. And again, we just then would go ahead and add some additional stones. What we could do too is we can right click on BS and clear all the stones on the path, and then when we hit add stones, it would kind of recalculate what's needed and then apply them rather than do, just quote unquote eyeballing it. All right, so let's just keep going here as long as we've gone this far. Now, this method, the reason that we use this method is because it's a more exact method. So we can really predict the end result be exactly what we want. So you do tend to get a better result, by taking a little bit more time this way and making it happen. So here, what I would do is I'd probably come in here and just select these 10s. Go ahead and position them where we think we want them, convert them to 6s, and then we would go ahead and add, I'm just going to hit the plus key on my keyboard, and if we select all of these stones, I'm going to hit my plus key one more time. So I'm just going to come in here and select all of these stones, and then go ahead and right click on D here, and that will space them and get them exactly how we need them that way, and we can then delete our path, and then we can decide horizontally. I'm pretty sure horizontally we're going to do SS10s, just like so. And again, I would select these stones going horizontally and right click on D just to equalize that spacing out a little bit there. But you can see how this basically came together, and I would just continue that process for everything. So for little here, I would go ahead and do those in SS6s, but we just drop one stone, go ahead and make our offsets. We'll go ahead and offset one stone that way, we'll offset one stone that way, we'll offset a couple stones this way, we'll offset one stone that way, and we'll come up here and do the same thing. And then we could just beg, borrow, and steal from this for some other lettering. So we'll just go ahead, that becomes our L, so we'll go ahead and delete that part. And then this will become our T. We'll flip that up, move that over, and I'll just pick these up and flip it, just because I think it'll probably be easier. And there goes our T, and of course we'll copy over our T, and we have our I here as well. So let's go ahead and grab our I from our L, and then of course we'll go ahead and pull this over as well. And then what I would do is come in here, we'll check spacing because there are some duplicates along the way there, and then that takes care of little. And then you can kind of just keep going on. And again, same thing with like wherever, you have to make a decision, well, what are we going to do? I think I'm going to do that in 6s. So I just come in here, we'll offset, we'll offset this up, Alt Control over for half that distance, and then just keep going, offset, 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 offset. And I would do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and make a duplicate, grab those two, and offset it halfway. And same thing here. We're going to go over, Alt Control down. That gets me what I need here. We're going to pull this path over and around and down. And then we'll go ahead, plus, 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 like so. Maybe one more will fit along there, delete. And then same thing here. We'll just pull that one over, and we will drop this path down here a little bit. So you can see that's basically the process that we take with pretty much any design that we do. It's pretty much that same process. But you can go through, and let's just go ahead and take a look at what we've done up to this point here. And we'll check our spacing, and we'll add a little weed box so we get a better feel for what it looks like. And that kind of shows you the progression up to this point. So hopefully that gives you some insight on how we would tackle this particular design, and show you how to kind of skip that part of doing the vector, because this way we get probably a more exact result of exactly what we're looking to achieve.